Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about another potential innocence fraud case, this time out of New York City, because somebody who is reportedly exonerated a couple of years ago has been rearrested for the same crime. And unfortunately, that same crime is murder. This person was convicted of murdering a 14-year-old girl when he and another affiliate, according to the original trial, fired randomly into a bus aiming at a gang-affiliated person or a woman known as a friendly that was supposedly tied to a rival gang, but ultimately they ended up striking a 14-year-old girl who was on her way back from a Sweet 16 party that very evening. Now, they released this person, and just a few months after his release, he's involved in another shooting that left a 19-year-old, this time male, dead, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And remind you that this show is available in podcasting form, links in the description.
Those years in hindsight never get back.
Those years was not, and I repeat, they were not kind for me.
Those three men you just heard of, they just spent a combined 56 years in prison for crimes the district attorney in Queens, New York now says they did not commit. Their convictions were overturned yesterday after newly discovered evidence was found by a specialized team within the Queens DA's office called the Conviction Integrity Unit, or CIU. The same CIU has now won over 100 wrongful conviction claims since it was started just 3 years ago.
So right off the bat, I have to take issue with what this CNN lady just said right there about the Conviction Integrity Unit winning over 100 cases in just under 3 years, because in reality, the Conviction Integrity Unit is under the wing of the prosecution's office. What that means is that even though it's staffed with public defenders, even though it's staffed with activists who support defunding the police, abolishing prisons, and all kinds of left-wing agendas, is that technically that is the side that is supposed to be representing the state against the criminal. So when they file motions in favor of the criminal, like to vacate the conviction, there is nobody on the other side of those issues. So they're not winning cases because there's nobody making the argument against any of these cases. And this is why so many of them are completely ridiculous and absurd on their face. Now, there's another CNN segment that I also have issue with that I want to talk about. And again, it's right in the opening where I start detecting the BS.
What was he like as a little boy?
Quiet.
Are you serious right now? Are we being serious at this very moment? Now, for my podcast listeners, you might not realize that they put a baby picture of this guy up on the screen in order to open the segment as a way to propagandize you to believe that this innocent baby angel, who by the way committed this crime at age 15, was convicted at age 16, would never do anything like this. And by the way, you're gonna see him later on at the age that he was on trial, and it's gonna be quite awakening to you, especially if you look at this and you're dumb enough to think, what an innocent angel, this little baby boy would probably never do anything. Honestly, why didn't they just show the sonogram photo of this kid? Show him in the womb so he could seem even more helpless, even more of an innocent angel, even more of a baby. Absolute ridiculousness right off the top from CNN, and it is a strategy, by the way, of the left wing to show you baby pictures of criminals, but you need to ask yourself, why am I looking at a baby picture of a criminal? Why am I not looking at the picture of the 14-year-old victim? And by the way, this is the victim of that particular 2013 shooting, Daja Robinson. There are no updated photos of her because she was murdered that evening when she was leaving a Sweet 16 party. And by the way, she was 14 years old, a freshman in high school, and actually legitimately an honor roll student. And reportedly, our buddy Shamel Capers, along with a 22-year-old criminal called Kevin McClinton, spotted a friendly to a rival gang. You see, they were affiliated with a gang called the Snow Gang, and supposedly this other girl, not the victim, was affiliated with a gang called EBK, but unfortunately Daja, who is nicknamed Asia by her friends, ended up being the one who suffered the consequences of their revenge gang rivalry style hit. Now again, even though Capers was convicted of this, even though he didn't win his appeals against this particular case, and it took a lifelong public defender in the conviction integrity unit in order to overturn this. That is what he was convicted of originally. But we're looking at his baby picture and hearing from his mother because he's an innocent angel Aladdin.
Always playing with his siblings.
I feel like those were beautiful days. It was just about me and my siblings and being together and having fun.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Shamel Capers was just a kid who was hanging out with him and his siblings. He was such a good boy. I mean, he was only 15 years old. He was arrested at age 16. He didn't get himself into any kind of trouble or anything like that. He's just a sweet guy. I mean, just look at these pictures of him as a baby. Look at these pictures of him playing with his siblings. What an innocent angel. He would never join a gang and then fire a gun into a bus because CNN is showing me these pictures and they have to be relevant.
Beautiful days until Shamel Capers was 16.
Shamel Capers stood handcuffed.
He was arrested, charged with murder, convicted, and thrown behind bars.
Capers will do 15 years to life in prison.
Yeah, that is Shamel Capers at 16. As you can see, he's absolutely huge and also very notable in this particular video, which they don't explain, but I will explain it to you. Shamel Capers is shackled and he actually has these foam additional things, again for my podcast listeners, over his hands while he's in court. Now, the reason why you take those extra precautions is when you have a particularly violent inmate, when you have somebody who has created problems. Maybe they're gang affiliated and they're in jail, they're that big, and they're trying to put a hurting on somebody. Now, that's just my speculation. Maybe they just put this on him because he had cat scratch fever and they didn't want him to scratch his itty bitty baby skin because he's such an innocent angel. But I know, as well as you guys know, that this is very unusual during a court proceeding without a prior incident in order to support it. Also, and I know the mother swears up and down and he swears up and down that he's not in a gang, but if you look at that image right there of the foam shackles from this totally non-violent person, just a normal precaution because of the cat scratch fever, you'll notice that he has tattoos. A 16-year-old with tattoos. Little bit unusual that he has those tattoos for an innocent angel Aladdin, don't you guys think? Maybe they're just Aladdin tattoos that he got to feed his starving family.
I was in a courtroom. I just felt numb.
I'm like, wow, like, this is unbelievable.
Now, because Capers was actually 15 at the time that this occurred, forget about when he got convicted, he was only sentenced to 15 years to life instead of the lengthier sentence that the 22-year-old co-defendant got. On top of that, reportedly, the way that this whole incident went down is that they spotted the friendly, the person that they actually tried to shoot, and they both pulled out their firearms. Now, they had witnesses that said that Capers had a gun on him earlier, that said he was affiliated with this gang, and all these different other various things throughout the course of the case in order to support it. Although, to be clear, this is disputed, and the prosecution, and by prosecution I mean the conviction integrity team, suddenly shrank the witness pool down to one, even though there are multiple witnesses in the original reporting and in the original documents related to the case. Gee, I wonder what side they are on, what perspective that they're going with when they're looking into this. Now, reportedly, the 22-year-old's firearm actually jammed when it came time to start shooting, and Capers was firing until the 22-year-old ended up taking the firearm from him and firing in 9 additional shots. I believe the breakdown was something like 1 or 2 from Capers and 9 from the other suspect, and then they took off. Now, there's surveillance video that places them in and around the area and all this other different supporting evidence, but to be 100% clear, with this whole 2 people shooting on the same gun thing, I understand why some people would be skeptical of this. So of all the innocence fraud cases that I covered, I just want to make this clear, there is some ambiguity here. On top of that, supposedly one of the witnesses, among the other witnesses, by the way, that now all of a sudden don't exist according to the conviction integrity unit, recanted his testimony or said that he was lying about things to the cops. I don't know the context of this, on a jailhouse phone call. Now, again, I don't know the context of this, if this was even related, but that is what is being alleged in the court documents in the filing that led to his conviction being vacated.
Tiaja's a happy, spoiled little girl, loving. She was so friendly. She was kind.
In May of 2013, 14-year-old Deja Robinson was riding a city bus just like this one home from a Sweet 16 party. Then 11 bullets were indiscriminately fired into the bus, and one hit her right in the head. She died right here on the street corner.
Now that's a weird way for this local CNN affiliate to describe this situation, because what actually happened, according to my reading of this particular case, is that yes, the random indiscriminate bullets were fired into the bus as described, but Deja actually got struck on the bus, and the way that people noticed that she was dead is that when people started hitting the ground, the bus driver took off in a panic in the bus. He didn't just abandon the bus. She was the only one sitting up. So likely she was dead inside the bus, but she was pronounced dead somewhere else. And by the way, even her reporting on that is a little bit wrong, because according to what I've seen, she was actually pronounced dead at Jamaica Hospital.
After the shots go off, that's when I ran in the direction to get away from everything that's going on.
Did you shoot at the bus?
No, not at all.
Did you have a weapon ever that day?
No, not at all.
Investigators didn't believe him. An eyewitness told prosecutors that Capers also took part in the shooting.
Now look, I'm not a body language expert. I would love the behavior panel to analyze this, but to me, this reads incredibly false. Because remember, there are actually separate witnesses that talk about the shooting with the handoff and all that, and the people who said that he was in possession of a .40 caliber handgun earlier in that day. On top of that, we have other information about this guy's history that is incredibly questionable, that is kind of covered in some of the most ridiculous ways by this particular segment. I mean, if you notice, the title of this particular video is "See Wrongfully Convicted Man Meet His 9-Year-Old Daughter 8 years after he was convicted." Now, I don't know if you guys are good at the maths, but he was convicted at age 16, meaning he had this girl at age 15, which is not exactly this innocent angel picture that they're trying to paint of this guy, that he wasn't involved in anything sketchy. Now again, fathering a child at age 15 doesn't necessarily make you a criminal, let's be clear about that. But it is a signal that he wasn't this innocent little baby angel that was just in his mother's shadow his whole time, who just hung out with his siblings in and around that age. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying.
Prosecutors believed at the time that Capers was associated with gang members, even though he insists he was never in a gang.
Now, Capers just says that he wasn't involved in the gang, but this photo right here looks a little bit suspicious, and notice the expensive watches, notice the tattoos in the people that are in and around him. And again, the people who said that he was a member of the gang happen to be members of the gang, the Snow Gang. That's what happened. On top of that, the charge that he is being currently indicted on right now by the same Queens District Attorney who let him out of prison is charging him in a shooting which was a dispute between two groups. Two groups were having a dispute. Two groups, which is quite familiar because remember, this was the Snow Gang shooting at a familiar of the EBK gang, also known as Two Groups in 2024.
My first night was one of my longest nights. I'm just in shock. I'm confused.
When he was taken to jail, Capers was a new father to a 5-month-old baby girl.
I don't even know how to use the phone just to call my mom.
So one of the things that I notice about these particular cases is not only do they try to infantilize these guys by showing their baby pictures, but they actually talk like they're mentally slow or something like that. This guy is trying to tell you that he doesn't know how to use the phone. He didn't even know how to call his mother. They also told you right before that, seconds before that, that he was a new father to a 5-month-old girl at the time of his arrest. So which one is it? Is this guy capable of being a new loving father that this whole segment is based around him reuniting with his daughter? Or was he a dumb idiot that was incapable of even using a telephone? What even do these buttons do? Oh my God, he couldn't even do it. And by the way, it's not even an excuse that he was like 15 or 16 in the era of the cell phone when they started becoming smartphones in and around 2013, 2014, because in reality, I got news for you guys. He would have had experience with at least a dial pad once in his life, but he was so confused when he got in jail, he couldn't even use a phone. Again, CNN, horrible job right here.
What is it like hearing Shamel describe what he went through that night?
It's hard.
Listen, I understand that you don't choose your name. I get it. I totally understand that it's on the parents. Parents name their children's unless in certain situations where you change your name. But this woman's name is Shamel Capers. Shamel Capers. That's all I have to say. I have no additional commentary. I mean, again, they're still whinging about how, oh my God, the mother, she was so sad, so upset, so stunned that her innocent baby angel son, her little child who can't even use the telephone, who was the father of a 5-month-old at the time that he was in prison and also gang affiliated, and also a bunch of different photos make him look very gang affiliated, and he's on surveillance video with these gang members that he was totally not affiliated with, but whatever, it doesn't matter because he can't even use a phone. He's basically a low functioning special needs person because even people with severe mental disability can use a damn telephone.
It's hard. It hurts. We had so many phone calls, so many visits, and just to hear him say, like, what he went through, what he experienced. It's not easy.
Wait a minute. Hold the phone, Tidleak. How the hell are you gonna tell me 4 seconds after this guy said he's incapable of using a phone in jail that you got so many phone calls from him while he was in jail? I just want to understand where things are going on in your brain, Tidley, because you're contradicting his story. Honestly, what they need to do is create a conviction integrity unit where I will examine these stories of these suspicious people who try to infantilize their criminal children in order to make excuses for them in order to get them out of prison. I mean, all he did was kill a 14-year-old girl and get convicted for killing a 14-year-old girl. I mean, why don't we think about how sad his life is?
It's kind of difficult, like, even seeing my mom sitting here. When they took me away from her, it was like, it was one of the hardest things for me. I was just worrying about not being able to be there for my mom. So me not being there, I feel like almost like I felt, and I didn't even do anything wrong.
Oh my God. Do you guys see the one tear in his eye? Like, you know, you littered in front of a Native American or something? Isn't that the sweetest thing ever? When he was convicted of murder, all he cared about was being taken away from his mom. He's just a mama's boy. He's a sweet guy. And when he says his mom, he means his mother, not his baby mother, because he was the father of a 5-month-old at this point in time. But all he was concerned about was them taking away from his mom, and also he just could not work a telephone. He needed some kind of telephone interpreter in order to make the buttons make the noise that ended up leading to his mother being called.
Deja's mom said this in court. Just because you're going to jail, that's not justice for me. You still get calls, visits, but me, my daughter is dust right now. I have to go to the cemetery.
And it just hurts hearing it all over again. I totally understand her pain. I really do. I totally understand. But now look at it. Look what me going to jail caused for my family. Look at the scars that my family have faced now.
Yeah, I don't like this at all. They read the mother's statement. They showed her earlier in this video, and it's a powerful statement. It's just because you have to go to jail doesn't mean your life is over. You still get phone calls. You still get time to see your daughter. You still get to talk to her and all of that. I have nothing. I go to the cemetery. My daughter is dust. Really powerful stuff. And then this guy says, oh, I totally understand her pain. But think about how my mama felt. I mean, I'm so dumb, I don't even know how to use a phone, so she didn't even know she was gonna get a phone call from me. Really ridiculous, really nasty. And again, I just want to point out that he has been arrested, and this was shortly after the time that the crime was committed. It was July of last year. He was let out in November of 2022. For a similar exact same style of crime, even though the news media is describing it incredibly stupidly. So there is a very good chance that this guy never left his gang. He got into a similar gang beef that he got into 10 years ago, and that led to the death of another person. I mean, except for a couple of months, this basically happened on the 10-year anniversary of the previous crime. They let this guy out. They said, oh, well, this other person said in a recorded phone call when he was talking to his mom that he was lying about stuff back in 2014. Therefore, we are going to dismiss all the other pieces of evidence against him. And to be clear, until I hear the full content of that phone call, which may be specific, it might not be these vagaries that often I see from the conviction integrity unit, I don't buy it. But I open myself up to the possibility based on the fact that this case is not the most solid case, but the way that he's presenting himself just seems nonsensical. It's one thing for you to deny a particular crime, but for you to deny a billion different other things that you don't need to deny in order to try to win your case, it seems really absurd. On top of that, while it is difficult to find information related to this case because it's all flooded with the newest breaking information of, the shootout that he got into between his group and another group, totally not gang affiliated either, I do want to point out that it seems like they weren't actually targeting this person for an investigation. In fact, he was first initially offered up as another additional suspect, but the police zeroed in on the 22-year-old and didn't consider him for a significant period of time. In fact, it wasn't until they got repeated anonymous tips related to his involvement that they decided to pursue those leads. They immediately dismissed the pinning it on him as a deflection technique, but through the maturation of the investigation, he ended up being incorporated as a suspect. So this is not a situation where they just pinned it on him right away for some weird reason. This was a naturally developing case. So I do want to see the evidence that they have of supposed innocence.
There are a lot of people who want to believe that whatever the courts find is true and accurate and reliable. The fact of the matter is it's not.
Now, to me, it would be very coincidental that this guy who says he's not involved in a gang, who says he has nothing to do with gangs, who has multiple witnesses saying that he is involved in a gang, it's called the Snow Gang, and he was convicted of a death in relation to a rival gang-related shooting, for him to coincidentally be wrapped up in another situation where he is arrested in connection with the death in a dispute between rival groups, because that's the politically correct term in 2024. Isn't that interesting that this guy is also claiming complete and utter innocence? He has his mom out there advocating for him again right now, saying that he's still an angel, even though these are the exact same circumstances. Even though it seems clear that according to the reporting, which by the way says it was a 4-way shootout in this particular incident that was triggered by somebody throwing a drink at him, that this would be related to his pattern of behavior. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Was he completely innocent of that previous case, or do you think the Conviction Integrity Unit did a good job because the evidence was thin as far as we've seen right now? Now, of course, I've gone through these cases before, been sent documents that show us that the evidence is overwhelming, and if I do find that, I will update that previous case. But what do you think about this new case? Same exact circumstances, teenager ended up getting killed. This time the teenager was actually involved in the dispute. Do you think that he was framed by the NYPD all over again, or do you think that maybe when there's this much smoke, there's a little bit of fire? And by fire, I mean gunfire. And by gunfire, I mean gunfire from Shamel Capers, the guy who's convicted of one shooting and now arrested in another shooting. Oh, and by the way, he was arrested in New Jersey and had to be extradited back to New York because, he fled to Jersey. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. As usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about another person supposedly exonerated being rearrested for the same crime. Till next time.